Dear guests and participants, dear family, dear colleagues and artists from Ivory Coast, Congo, Cameroon and Senegal, dear Sami, I have the great honor tonight to introduce you as a visual artist and scholar. We have known each other for almost 5 years when we invited Sammy Baloji to participate in the exhibition Congo as Fiction, curated by Nina Guia and myself in 2019. For the exhibition, we asked several Congolese artists to explore the Colonial archive of Hans Himmelheber and his research and collecting trip to the Belgian Congo in the 1930s. The artists had carte blanche, and Sami developed his impressive installation Kasala, which he will talk about in a moment. But not only his artwork, also the intensive conversations with Sammy Baloji and later on also Sinso during the artist residencies made us rethink about our curatorial concept and post-colonial museum practices. In a filmed interview that was also part of the exhibition, Sami asked the crucial question, how do you decolonize yourself? In making this plea for a process of decolonialization, he commented on his own artistic approach of deconstructing colonial archives, but also challenged us as curators, us as institution, and the audience to critically reflect and rethink the Western-influenced historiography of Africa and its global entanglement. At the same time, Sami, with his network and experience, was like a co-curator in the background of our project. Through him, other artists like Sinso Ansa or Michel Magema came on board and became equally important. It is not without reason that Sammy Baloji is one of the 100 most influential artists worldwide, according to the journal Art Review. Born in Lubumbashi in 1978, he was one of the first artists to deal with colonial archives and colonial architecture in Belgian Congo, and created, for example, his photomontage memoir from 2005 and 2006. He is thus one of the pioneers of the archival turn in the contemporary art scene. In recent years, Sammy Baloji's international career has continuously gained momentum. He is represented in all major collections of contemporary art museums worldwide. He has received various fellowships and awards, and he was also a resident at the French Academy of Rome in the Villa Medici. At the same time, he is committed to the art scene in Congo and is the co-founder of the artist group Picha, which has been organizing the Lubumbashi Biennale since 2008. In the last, I think, 3-4 years, he has participated in over 25 group exhibitions and art biennales on themes like identity and migration, memory and history, colonization and resistance, among others in Australia, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Sweden, Turkey, and the US, and I'm sure I have forgotten some. In addition, he has had solo exhibitions such as Other Tales in Denmark and Sweden in 2020, and Congo, Fragments of Interlaced Dialogue in Florence and Paris a year later, and the next solo exhibition is planned this year at the Kunsthalle in Mainz. In the last year, he was also teaching at Le Haute École d'Art et de Design à Geneva. So I'm really very happy that you, Sami, will open our conference with your keynote. As theoretical artist or artistic researcher, you will talk about your PhD project that you have been realized since 2019 at the Department of Visual Arts at the Karel de Groote University of Applied Sciences and Arts in Antwerp. Your work is a further development of the installation Kasala you realized for Fiction as Congo, or Congo as Fiction, and which was also a reaction to the Himmelheber archive. It is about the question of how to give the decontextualized and mute objects in the museum a voice again, and thus also a new meaning. For this, Sami is collaborating with writer Fiston Mwanza Mujila, who composed a modern Kasala that, along with the lookcloser memory boards, commemorate Luba memory practices. So I'm really eager to hear more of your contemporary Kasala version and lookcloser version, and now turn the floor over to you, Sami. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, Katinka. Thank you, Michaela. And I would like to thank you, all the Rietberg team, for having me here. And it's the second time, and we spent a lot of time working on the exhibition Congo Fiction. And it was, for me, a period also to discover not only the collection, but to get to know Michaela and also Nanina, whom we've been working and having discussions around the collection. And I'm so grateful that you were so open and that you opened also all these collections. And we were in a really, I would say, horizontal conversations in a way, and that result in quite long collaborations that has been going on since then. With also the Lubumbashi Biennale in Lubumbashi that we've been doing since 2008. So Rietberg was supporting us, and we were also working together. So I would like to thank you all for doing this, and thank you for that. As Michaela presented, I'm from Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I was born in Lubumbashi, so it's the second town in Katanga province. But actually, this is an old map because it has changed in a way that now we have more provinces than the 11 ones that we had, that we inherited from the colonial period. But at least these 11 provinces were still existing till 2016 or 18 when they decided to kind of blow it up again. But Lubumbashi is in the Katanga province, which is the southern one, and it's an important mining area because it's part of the copper belt that we found in the austral part of Africa. So I was born in Lubumbashi, and I grew up in an industrial area with all this relation to extraction, and I've been working on that mining heritage, but also linking to the colonial period, because cities as we have them in Congo came through the colonial or during the colonial period in a way. So when I was invited to be part of the program that the Rietberg was launching around the Himmelheber collection, I was starting my PhD research in Belgium at the Fine Art St. Lucas, which is a Fine Art Institute, university, but it's basically a research program that is done or supported by 3 departments coming from the University of Anthropology in Antwerp and the Fine Arts Institute, so the St. Lucas, and the Royal Fine Academy, that both are kind of creating this project where artists can make research and kind of come out with a presentation that can be considered to be as a doctorate in a way. So since 2019, I've started the research. And one of the things that I wanted to do, the reason why I wanted to do that research, basically it's because, as I said before, I was born in Lubumbashi, and I had to deal with the colonial legacy because I didn't learn about that at school because it wasn't part of a pedagogical program. We've been going through a dictatorial regime since 1965 to 1997, but I won't go into that historical part because it can take us hours in a way. So I think that it's just important to point that we've been going through a kind of social amnesia in a way, but due to the Cold War and so on, and the dictatorial regime, and all the wars that are still happening in Congo, actually, I would say. So one other thing for me in my research, I was really interested in to situate myself as someone coming from Congo. Actually, Congo was invented in 1885 at the Conference de Berlin, and this is where Leopold and other kings in Europe decided to divide Africa into those countries that we still have today. So I wanted to make research in order to situate myself, because we're still under those arbitrary frontiers till today. And my idea is always how to question those frontiers, and how do we speak about our identity within these borders in a way, and how to question also those borders. So in a way, my practice was, my research was this idea to kind of question, or to situate myself into this, I would say, fictional Congo in a way. Because basically, as I said, Lubumbashi, which is the second city, was created in 1910, actually. And it's because the railway from Congo was connected to the South African, to the Rhodesian railways. And this way, all the mineral resources coming from Katanga could go through Cape Town and then exported worldwide. So the city started in 1910, and it was under these three elements, which are basically the colonial administration, under, of course, Belgian, I mean, the Belgian were the one actually having leading the colonial administration. On all the other side, the church, I would say the Catholic presence, in a way, played a big role into, I'll say, alienating, but also creating Christian values in that area. And then, of course, the mining, which was the economical interest in a way, was so important, and that was the main reason also of the colonization in the area. And since it was possible for them to extract mineral resources and to send them worldwide for all, it's still today, for all technologies that we need, or this evolution or modern life that we're going through. There was also this idea of creating the city, and here are some plans of the urban planning that was created in Lubumbashi, for example. But there are maps also for other cities in Congo, but this one is from Elisabethville. So Lubumbashi was called Elisabethville. Elizabeth was the name of the queen of Belgium at that time. So the city was named after Elizabeth, and it was called Elisabethville. And as you can see, the plan of the city, on top you have the European city, and above you have La Cité Albert. So Cité Albert, it's where all the indigenous people were living. And basically, these indigenous were not coming from the area, and they were workers or laborers that were actually deported or bought in other parts of, like in the Rhodesian part, or even in Kasai, in the central part of Africa, and even of Congo. So they were brought to work for the mining company. And as you can see, the yellow dots, there was this kind of separation between the two cities by what they were calling as a neutral zone, and in French or in the Belgian language it was called a cordon sanitaire, so it was a sanitary corridor, basically, that was separating the two cities. And you had also the military camp just near the indigenous city in order to control, actually, all these people in case they want to strike or react. And this is an aerial view from 54 with the same sanitary corridor. And this is one in 2007. The change in between is just because we got our independence in 1960, and since then, I mean, there's not any new urban planning in a way, but we're still living in those, in this urban planning by also introducing new codes, but at the same time, reflecting to what happened. But coming back to the colonial period, I have this kind of element that shows how the city was segregated and how there was this hierarchy of based on the color of skin and between indigenous and white, or even people coming from Asia. And this is a public transport where you can see how it was divided between people from Asia and indigenous ones. But this I'm showing you because it's archives, as we're talking about archives and how we're talking also about Himmelheber's archives. I found this photograph in the mining company in Lubumbashi. And it was just a small one, like 10 by 15 inch, and I was really interested. And when I turned, in order to understand what was happening in the photographs, it's written like fly control campaign. So each worker must bring 50 flies in order to receive a daily ration. And I was back in 1920. But this brings us back to the sanitary corridor, where each worker not only had to work, but he had also to catch flies in a way and bring it in order to receive his daily food. So basically, these two young boys are sitting beside a pile of flies on the top. And these flies, found them, some of them are at the Tervuren Museum in Belgium, and some of them are part of the Lubumbashi Ethnographic Museum in boxes. And as you can see, they've been somehow collected and researched, and maybe they justify the reason of the sanitary corridor. But you can see that here there's this manifest of the urban planning that justifies actually the sanitary corridor. And it says that the neutral zone avoids close contact between whites and blacks. An almost empty area measuring of minimum of 500 meters separate the two areas of settlement. This distance corresponding to that which a malaria-carrying mosquito will normally cover. The neutral zone does divide the lives of black from those of whites. It keeps the latter safe from the sources of malaria and from the ruddy activities of blacks, so creating completely independent living conditions for each race. It is a true cordon sanitaire placed at the right angle from the prevailing winds. Our urban planning content itself with creating development that satisfy conditions of hygiene, salubrity, and security, giving the white and black races the opportunity to live according to the hopes and needs of each, however modest this might be. So this is an aerial view that I took from of Lubumbashi in the mining area, as you can see. And the other thing that I would like to say about the indigenous city And the reason why I was saying that they were coming from outside, so they were not really people living or like, coming from traditional jurisdiction. It's because normally the indigenous cities or the Cité Albert was not responding to the traditional jurisdiction. So it was what one of the Congolese philosopher was calling the new memory that was created in those indigenous city. So Mudimbe said, like, this is the places where we do have new memories that came from the colonial system, because these places are not under traditional jurisdiction. So they don't respond to that. It's places where you need to learn to speak French in order to be civilized. You need to go to church. You need to live as a white. You need to embrace the European culture in order to be considered as a human being, in a way. So basically, what we have in our towns, it's these values that were created during the colonial period, but still kind of dealing with what happened also in the rural area. But I won't speak about how the church, but even the administration had an impact on rural communities inside the country. But I think that Professor Zoe Strotter is there. She can speak about it because she's been leading research in Congo. But in fact, just what I would like to mention is that these cities are kind of spaces that are not related to the rural or the tradition of the place, in a way. So, when I was invited by Michaela and I saw these archives coming from Himmelheber, and knowing all these elements that I've been showing you, but it's just a few of them, I thought that maybe it could be interesting to find a way of creating a methodology. What was the methodology for me to kind of react with these archives? And I'm from Luba's culture, which is one of the many communities that we have in Congo. So basically you have Luba, the Lumba Empire was situated in the southern parts of the Katanga province, where I showed you at the beginning. And you have another group of Lubas who are living in the central part of Congo, in a way. So I was interested in how I can bring another way of connecting with colonial archives, because Himmelheber's expedition happened during the colonial period, in a way. So whatever intentions were behind, but still the context was already settled, where actually it was under colonial rules that somehow deported and destroyed local systems in order to create new memories, in a way. So what is interesting for me is somehow to think about how to connect with all these traces and knowledges of the pre-colonial time that still exist in forms of resistance, but in the forms of also adaptation to what is still going on in the country, actually. But that are part of also my heritage, because, of course, I was born in a Christian family with Christian values, but still, this connection with my Luba's culture, I had not really, I wouldn't say being, how do you say it, like trained with Luba's culture, but I was in contact because I do speak Chiluba, so I can understand also but even the way that some terms in Lub has been translated in French, and there you could also understand that they are kind of tricky translations, betraying the knowledge itself and the way of connecting with the territory, with the people in a way. So I thought that it was interesting to bring a methodology that are part of my culture somehow, and that I could connect to what was happening with the Himmelheber archives that were part of the residency program. So basically, one of the elements that I wanted to work on, it's the Kasala, actually. So the Kasala, it's a poem, it's a ceremonial poem that basically it's played at a different period of life of a human being. It can be at the birth of someone or at a wedding period or whatever. But the most important thing with the Kasala, it's that it transmits the knowledge concerning the genealogy, ancestors, and even the reason that someone is named after, and what are the meanings of the names, and also characteristics of the name, and who are the ancestors who had that names, and what did they do, where did they come from, what did they conquer, and so the person who's getting the name has also this kind of responsibility, but also a memory of where he's coming from. But not only that, it's also connect through the poem. They're trying to connect a human being with the mythology or even the cosmogony that somehow creates a system of a community in a way. But it's not only that, it's also this connection to the land, because the land is also a space of memories, because we bury our ancestors. So there's also this kind of connection with the land. You can never connect someone to. I mean, it's impossible to speak about someone without talking about the land, because you do have also references or repairs in the land. So it's kind of important to connect a human being to a territory in a way. So I thought that the Kasala could be a good way to start a conversation with Himmelheber's collection. Why? Because through all the expedition that he did in Congo, he also traveled till part of Kasai and also Katanga. So, and because I was saying, what am I going to do with all these archives? Because some are from like Bakongo's culture, some are from Pende's culture. So it's not just because I'm black or Congolese that I can work on any of these objects. I mean, I don't have the knowledge to connect with that, or even to create a sort of artworks that speaks about those are visible or non-visible or shadowed voices in a way, or memories. So for me, I had to figure out how to connect with what I have and what comes from my own culture, but also that is part of a way of transmitting or even producing knowledge connected to a territory. So what I did basically was to going through Himmelheber's archives, but also collaborating with one of the Luba's writer, who is Fiston Manzamujila. And Fiston is also from Luba community, but he has the same reality like me, because we were all born in a modern city, so not being initiated, but still we've been in contact with our grandfathers and so on. So we have a kind of hybrid knowledge of all this double culture that we sort of we have in our life. So it was for me interesting to really connect with Fiston in order to create an artwork that somehow speaks about our proper situation, so to do a sort of reappropriation, not only of our culture, but also speaking about how at least the spaces where we are spaces that are sort of problematic because they are not, they are alienated spaces. And in this regard, one of the things that was striking for me while I was looking through the Himmelheber collection were these X-rays that were done on this so-called ethnographic object. So not only they've been silenced in Western collections, because you do have even instruments that are not played. I mean, like even this object, when they were part of a collective, they were used in order to create a certain harmony in a way, or to relate to the community. But I was struck in a way by this X-ray because somehow I remember this film of Les Statues meurent aussi, which is a film by Chris Marker, done in '60, but actually it was censored when it was released. But it's just a few years after, like 10 years after that, it was released. And in this film, which I cannot show, but you can watch it on YouTube, you can find it easily. So basically it's a film that speaks about how all these objects are, African objects are decontextualized, but also, and that there are new meanings that are created, exotic ones or whatever, but that are created in European museums in a way. But also this idea of how finally even the African productions have been influenced finally by this European taste. So in terms of decontextualization, I was thinking that this X-ray, even though that they can show what is inside the object, but they can never recontextualize the use or the meaning of the object in its culture, where it's been produced, and where you have users and people connecting with through ceremonies or through events that were important for them, in a way. So there's this kind of decontextualization approach, which I basically also thought that it's important to consider the Congo as a place that, as I said since the beginning, that it's been invented in 1885. But I had to show also to refer to the fact that even after the colonization, we still ourselves reconducting the colonial model by staying in the same borders, but also by reconducting also some colonial rules, such as the one when it comes to mining property, with Mobutu, who was the dictator since, as I said before, since 1965. But at the moment of Zairianization, where he decided to make all the Congo a state property with all these enterprises, the mining enterprise, and all these economical activities that were happening in Congo, he decided to centralize and relate those two as a state property. They created this law that was saying that the land and the soil and on the soil belongs to the state. So it means that people are no longer owner of their land, in a way. This brings me back to when I was talking about Kasala, where someone can never be identified without the land, without this connection to the land, while the state itself, which is a colonial reconduction state, is like states like the land and the soil and on the soil belongs to the state. So basically, even today, in Congo, people are deported. I mean, as I was saying, that war is still happening. People are migrating within the country, depending on if they found copper or coltan or whatever. They can expropriate you. We had these kind of discussions even with Sinzo about that. But it's things that happen today. But even the book that he wrote about, for example, in Kolwezi, which is another city situated at 300 kilometers from Lubumbashi. Basically, the city was built on top of a mining site. So they discovered it after creating the city, but that was back in during the colonial period. And then they had this idea to move the city, but they never done it because, I mean, independence came and they were not able to do that. But actually, people are digging in their houses in order to extract mineral resources and selling. And so you have like houses falling down suddenly because under the house there are tunnels and people are kind of meeting on the soil. So, and one of the thing related to the fact that the land is not longer the owner's property, and this belongs to the state, which was invented during the colonial period. I referred to one of the facts that happened actually end of 1979, where in the central part of Congo, where you found diamonds, basically, and which is also part of a Luba land, in Katekelai, which is one of a small village, people suddenly discovered in 1979, they discovered diamonds, and they started to dig. But then the police decided to strike back, and more than 100 people were killed because the government decided that they are the one who should extract and sell the diamond and not the people. So this happened basically in 1979, and it was Mobutu who decided to do that. So I wanted with Fiston to create a story of displacement, but also the way that people are no longer, since the colonial period till now, they are not connected to their land, and as a matter of fact, they are not connected to the spirit, they are not connected to any kind of identification anymore, because there are a lot of facts, and because of the fact that the mining activities, but in a way, since 1997, the mining sector have been privatized. So we have Chinese, we have European companies, Swiss companies, like dealing with mining in the area. So in a way, it's kind of going back to what Leopold did since the beginning, because when he got Congo, he said that it's a space for free exchange, in a way. So even now, and with this constitution, and the fact that the mining sector is privatized, so everything can happen in the area. So I took with Fiston this as a moment to start a story that we could create. So we started a work that was around fragmented stories of dispossessions, but also extractions of mineral resources, extractions of cultural productions, in a way, but through a text that is based on the Kasala structure, which is part of Luba's way of producing knowledges. But this, you can find it actually on website, and I don't think that it's time to go through the text itself and to talk about. So, and what I did also was starting to scan mineral resources in response to the X-rays that were done for ethnographic objects in Europe. Thank you so much.